From Nevada Public Radio, I'm Joe SCHOENMANN. It's State of Nevada. Major League Baseball owners gave the Oakland Athletics their blessing to move to Las Vegas a couple weeks ago. That was a big hurdle. Lots of stories written about it. But one story that hasn't got as much attention is one that could potentially kill the A's stadium outright. Where will they get the funding to build that stadium? The stadium could cost $1.5 billion. Nevada is giving the A's owner, billionaire John Fisher, $380 million. Now, what happens if Fisher can't secure loans or private investors for his $1.1 billion share of the expense? Howard STUTZ, gaming reporter for the Nevada Independent, is with us. He's been following this story for months. Howard, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Joe. Appreciate it.
Great to have you. So first I want to talk about the vote by the 30 baseball team owners. They unanimously said, yeah, we want the A's to move from Oakland to Vegas. What was the compelling reason for that?
You know, I don't think there was a compelling reason. It wasn't a surprise. No, it would have been a shock if they got 15 owners to vote no. I mean, they're basically, if he wanted to move, they're going to let him move. It's really up to him. Now, there was a story in The Athletic right before the vote. The three owners that were like the subcommittee that did a report on it, they were not real positive on Vegas being a site for a Major League Baseball team at this point. And pretty much what they said is go ahead and vote for it, but it's on Mr. Fisher and the A's. They have to put this together, be competitive, draw the fans, and it's really on them. So they basically washed their hands of it, allowed him to go ahead and make the move and go from there. I think there was a lot of surprise. I guess the one thought was the A's haven't been very successful in the last few years, especially on the field and in the stands. Also, why not give Vegas an expansion team? Find local owners, and the question is still: is Vegas ready for Major League Baseball? That will be something that still needs to be determined.
Was that what the owners were saying, that they might not get the support here locally for locals to go to 80 games a year?
Well, the question was they thought they were relying. The owners, that report, which I haven't seen, this was reported by The Athletic. Was that I tried my best to get a copy of the report. Yeah. But the question is are they relying too much on tourism to fill the stadium?
Right.
That's the big question. They're saying that they're going to get 2.4 million visitors to fill that stadium for 80-something games, total, 33,000 seats, and then along with locals. I don't, that's the big question. Look, we've got a while before this is going to, before this happens. I mean, the first pitch at the new ballpark wouldn't take place till April 2028. So there's some time here to try to see how this works out. But that was the question they put out. Could Vegas support Major League Baseball? I mean, look, there are only 13 cities, I think, in the U.S. that have all four major league sports. We would become the 14th with three of the major league sports once the A's come here. There is talk about the NBA wanting to put a team here, an expand. Oh no, that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure it'll go into that arena, the Oakview Arena, that's south end of town on Las Vegas Boulevard and Blue Diamond Road that's being built. That'll happen, but maybe not for 3 years. The question is, it's only 14 cities with all four major league sports. And we'd be the smallest.
We're the 40th market share, and I think Oakland is like between 9th and 12th, so they're going to a much smaller market as well.
Right. You have the whole East Bay area that was part of their territory, the Oakland A's territory. San Francisco has the West Bay and the South, and then the A's would have the whole East Bay area. And Vegas is roughly 2 million with 2-3 million people. It's much smaller.
The chatter after the vote was there was no alternative to moving to Las Vegas. So that kind of suggests that staying in Oakland wasn't possible. But you covered this, and you went to Oakland, and you talked to Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao. Was that true?
They were really trying to put a deal together, and they had spent a great amount of time. Now, the mayor, she was on the city council. She got elected to mayor in January, and this all fell in her lap, and began really negotiating with the A's. We found out later then is she went to Seattle at the All-Star game with these packets of documents for each major league owner showing that there was a deal in place for the A's to stay in Oakland. She met with the commissioner while she was in Seattle. They did another effort right before the owners' vote, and it showed that they claimed the public money in Oakland was greater than the public money being offered in Nevada. It was like $900 million in public money for the site on the Howard Terminal, which is on the port of Oakland.
$900 million, wow.
And that site originally, they were talking about putting the stadium, but also all this infrastructure around it, retail, restaurants, condos. And it's a big site. I saw the site. We went out. My photographer David Calver and I went out to the site with the Port of Oakland officials. It's a good enough site. You can actually see on a clear day. You can see downtown San Francisco from the site. It's right near downtown Oakland. So yeah, it seemed like an interesting site. A lot of Oakland fans that I talked with wanted to stay in the Coliseum, wanted to refurbish the Coliseum. The Coliseum is very old. I will give you that. It's 57 years old and it's fallen apart. It needs work. So there was a groundswell of support in Oakland among the fan base to keep the team there, but it just didn't happen, and the owners are going to the different in this, and the team's going in this direction.
Now we hear sketches of the baseball stadium. I mean, there have been preliminary sketches that were put out there. Sounds like those are not going to be what the stadium actually is, but sketches have been put out there, and casino operators are raving about them.
Yeah.
You haven't seen them yet.
I have not seen the new renderings. The A's have said they're probably going to do something in December publicly and, finally see the renderings of what the new ballpark will look like. What they put out was, it was really just thrown together in May at the time. They threw them out the morning of that the bill dropped, that's showing the legislation.
For state lawmakers.
And we were laughing, because we had written we had pre-written the bill story, and all of a sudden, look, pretty pictures, pay no attention to all these numbers. Look at these. It was what was fascinating was it was supposed to be 9 acres. The stadium is only taking up 9 acres of the 35-acre Tropicana site. One of the renderings basically looked like they were taking the whole site. So it was very right. It was immediately there were more questions than answers once those renderings came out.
Now, funding, I want to get into that, and that's kind of how we started this conversation. It's the most controversial part of this. Last year, Nevada lawmakers okayed $380 million for the stadium, and that includes $180 million in transferable tax credits, $120 million in Clark County bonds, and again, if the stadium doesn't pay off those bonds, Clark County taxpayers will have to pay for those, and a $25 million credit from the county for infrastructure. So put in the infrastructure, the county's going to give you credit for that and not charge you up to, I guess, $25 million. A's owner John Fisher is a billionaire worth about $3 billion. Will he put up the cash himself for the remainder of that stadium cost?
That is the question that I have been asking since the legislature. And we have been. In the Nevada Independent, we've been very, very upfront. Where is this rest of this coming from? It's very different from the Raiders. We knew what the Raiders were going to do. There's a silo for the public money, the $750 million in room tax, which is very different from what the tax structure that the public money coming for the A's, because that was just 0.88% of what you pay when you rent a room on the Strip. That's going toward help paying that off. So it was very clear. We also knew that the late Sheldon Adelson, Las Vegas Sands, was putting up $650 million. That came after the legislative session that approved the Raiders deal. Yeah, the money went away. But the Raiders covered it up. The Raiders came back. Mark Davis had the financing from B of A. There was also about another silo from Goldman Sachs. So we knew where the Raiders' money was coming from. Been very different with the A's. The A's, Dave Cavell, the president of the A's, who's been kind of the face of this whole thing, in Vegas, said the Fisher family is going to put in the largest private investment ever put up for a team. There's a talk with Goldman Sachs is going to help fund some of this. There's other financing. We just don't know that structure yet, and that's a question that we've been asking. Does he have the money to do it? Does anybody want to put up, $1 billion of their own money? Some do, some won't. I don't, he hasn't really shown that. Mr. Fisher hasn't shown that he's going to do that. There will be some public, some money from him, from the family, But the rest of it, how that whole piece comes together, we're still waiting to see.
I wonder why there would be reticence to do that, because the Raiders in Allegiant have done so well with that stadium, and they rely heavily on tourists to come to the games, to support the various things there, the various events. It's not just football, but the reason I put that up is because you reported the team is going to seek funding from Goldman Sachs. In a recent podcast, former Miami Marlins president David Sampson said it's much more expensive for teams to do business with Goldman Sachs. So if Fisher is doing that, it means less expensive banks that won't charge as much interest, don't want to work with him. Between this and there is a potential for Fisher to give away bits of the team to pay off a loan. What's this say about Fisher as a businessman or his reputation as a businessman?
I only have learned about him this last year, since the whole A's deal. There's a lot of, it's a lot very controversial in the Bay Area. He bought the San Jose Earthquakes, Major League Soccer team, immediately pushed to build a stadium for the Earthquakes, which was done with public money and some financing, and the Earthquakes finally made the playoffs this year for the first time, so it hasn't been as successful. He promised to do a lot with the A's, and it hasn't been done. But he said he has been pushing for a new stadium in Oakland for 20, since he bought the team. He's not as public. Mark Davis has been very public. Has been very much different. Mm-hmm. Bill Foley, the owner of the Vegas Golden Knights, very public individual. We're going to see if he's a little more public here in Vegas as he gets closer. I mean, these are the first interviews he actually did right after the owners vote. He did interviews with other media, including myself. So it was very, but you got very little time with him, and not a lot of in-depth questions that could be asked during that time. So it was we'll see. As time's going to tell.
When we talked to him, were there any topics that were off limits?
No. Well, I asked about financing, and he said, "Well, I'm not here really to talk about that right now. That'll be determined." That's when, and I ended up talking to Dave Cavill a little bit more about that. So yeah, it was. He wants to bring. I asked him if he's going to move to Las Vegas. He said, we're looking at it, which he's lived in the Bay Area all his life, so be an interesting change. So we'll just see. And like I said, it's not like we're going to see the A's here tomorrow. Well, we'll see them in March when they play the next couple of spring training games at Las Vegas Ballpark. They're playing 2024 in Oakland. That's under contract. Mm-hmm. They will play there. They'll be the Oakland A's. I'm not sure what kind of attendance it's going to be like, but it'll be very interesting to see. After that, it's still be determined. It's got to be determined by next spring, at least by July, I think, before the All-Star break, because that's when the Major League schedule comes out for the 2025 season. So where the A's are going to play, how they're going to do this, that's going to be all be determined over a course of time the next few months. So we'll see what happens.
What happens if the price of this stadium goes over the $1.5 billion cost? I just know this from covering different developments in Las Vegas and the state. There's usually a 10% overrun that's built into almost every single development. And it's just expected in a lot of these contracts. Both Allegiant Stadium and the Sphere, our two most recent mega venues, overran their budgets.
Well, the Sphere was what 1.6, and it ended up 2.3 billion. So yeah.
If that happens, what would Fisher have to do? Does he come back to Nevada, and would Nevada lawmakers even think about saying yes to something like for more money?
Yeah, get a couple lawmakers on here. I'd love to ask them that. No, look, even to get more money, you're gonna have to go back to the legislature, and I don't think Lombardo's going to call a special session in the middle of an election year in 2024, and so it's going to have to wait till 2025. If it cost overruns, that's going to be on the A's to come up, on Fisher and the A's to come up with that, to figure out how to finance that, which way mechanisms possible. Yeah, obviously there are always cost overruns. We like you just said, we saw that with Allegiant. Sphere has been the biggest example of it. And the most recently, it costs more. It's actually 17,500 seats, and it costs more than 65,000 seat Allegiant Stadium. So that's the nature of the business.
A couple of weeks ago, Ray Brewer, managing editor of the Las Vegas Sun, was on, and he had said he had hoped that when the legislature put together this deal with the A's, they had put something in there that said John Fisher has to invest more money to a certain percent in this team that he already is, because he has a record and a reputation as one of the as a baseball owner who doesn't put money into his team. His payroll last year was the lowest in the league. The team had the worst record, losing 112 games. If the A's are leveraging so much to build a stadium, do you think? I guess the question is, are they going to put money into the players?
You would think they would have to. I mean, you would think so. But, look, I'm not a sports writer anymore. I'm now sports business. I was a sports writer years ago. That's going to be up to them. That's going to be up to Major League Baseball.
But you're also, the casino guys, they want this to work for them. So will they put pressure? And does it matter from billionaire to billionaire? Does it matter if one puts pressure on the other to put more support into a team like this?
Good question. Look, this has had a lot of support in the legislature from MGM especially, since they have. They have like 13,000 hotel rooms that will surround. They operate all those hotel casinos around the Tropicana site. Those are MGM properties. They're very much, and they're not paying a nickel. They want this.
Right.
All the labor unions came out in support of it. Culinary was in support of it. You had the project labor agreement signed by the building trades. You had the culinary again, an agreement to organize the workers at the ballpark once it's built. So yeah, there's a lot of that groundswell support, but there's a lot of questions with John Fisher didn't testify in front of the legislature, but the day after the initial hearing in May, we spotted him walking through the halls of the legislature with Dave Cavil and his lobbyists and meeting with lawmakers. I got about 30 seconds to say hi to him and shake his hand, and he walked away. And we got some photos of him. So yeah, it's he's not the public persona guy that you would see from like you saw from Mark Davis. Really, I mean, that's really the way I look at it.
We're talking about the still Oakland A's. They have a proposal and an approval to move to Las Vegas. They have $380 million in Nevada taxpayer support, but there are a lot of questions, and Howard Stutz of the Nevada Independent has been following this whole story closely. So, Howard, if Fisher and the team secures funding, what's the next step?
Well, there's a lot of steps now. They got the vote from the Major League from the owners, but now they've got to get numerous agreements put together. The lease that it's got to be approved by the Stadium Authority, the public benefits package. There are the timeline for construction. The stadium has to be, the FAA has to kind of sign off on the stadium because of the proximity of the ballpark to Harry Reid International Airport. So the FAA will have to make just give its blessing to it. So there are a lot of agreements that need to be done within the next year before the A's can even ask the county to go, to get for the money for the public financing. So there's a lot ahead of it. We're going to see we're not going to see much other than public meetings and different announcements over the next year.
You don't think, or maybe you do, that the Clark County Commissioners or the Stadium Authority is going to put up big hurdles about this? I mean, because they've already basically supported it.
Well, the way, as my understanding, I don't cover the legislature. That's why I have Tabitha Mueller working with me on this story. Because of the legislature ruling, the state basically told the county, you have to do this. So they have to get this. So the county will have to get this done. But there's going to be some questions. Look, I'm sure the county's had questions about F1 after the last 5-6 months. So last year, really. So that's something. But this is a little different. They were told the legislature approved the funds. The county has to go ahead and once the A's have dotted the I's and crossed the T's, they have to go ahead.
There is another potential legal hurdle. That's schools over stadiums. This is a move by the state teachers union to ask voters to decide if they want to give $380 million to the A's. And that means it would go on the ballot in 2024. Recently, a judge shot down their first petition, but it looks like the union's going to try again. If they got that question on the ballot, do voters want to give $380 million to the A's? Do you think the voters would support that?
Well, first off, they got to get it on the ballot. They're going to take it. They've said they're going to file a lawsuit. They're going to challenge the judge's ruling in the Nevada Supreme Court. But they could go ahead and just redo the petition, but they have to attach like the entire bill to it, I guess, is what the story is what the judge ruled.
Oh.
They've got to get 100,000 plus signatures to put it qualified on the ballot. That was based on the number of people voted in the last election. They are going to face fierce opposition from, like I said, every labor union in the state is supportive of the A's, including the culinary and all the other the building trades. All the chambers chambers of commerce in Las Vegas and Southern Nevada are supportive of the A's. The challenge will be to collect the signatures to get it on the ballot. Then you're going to come up with a huge try to get support for the public to vote for the A's getting the funding. That'll be the question is how the ballot question is worded. I think deep down the biggest fear of everybody is public. Anywhere you've put a ballot question for public money for a stadium, it's lost in the last few years. Look at San Diego, couldn't get a public money for the Chargers to stay in San Diego. Just recently, Tempe, Arizona voted down $150 million in public money to Alex Morello, the owner of the Sahara, who owns the Arizona Coyotes, for about $1 billion plus arena and complex that he was going to basically fund most of it himself. It was $150 million in public money needed to clean up the site, and the voters turned it down. So I think the last thing the A's and their supporters want to see is this come on to the public, go on a ballot in front of the voters, because voters have notoriously, famously, whatever adjective you want to use, have turned down public money for a ballpark, for a stadium.
By the way, you talked with fans when you were in Oakland. We have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah.
There have been guesses that some 8,000 fans might fly or drive to Vegas for the A's 80 home games. But from conversations you had with Oakland fans, what do you think?
No, it was that was if some of them said, well, I might be in Vegas for a conference or something, and if the A's are playing, maybe I'll go. There were some diehard A fans that were just like, no, I'm done. I will not, support the A's going to Vegas. That's a very, it's a very solid. There'll be some that come in, and might come to go. This is very different from the Raiders, where you have 8-9 home games. Maybe a playoff game, not this year, but maybe a playoff game or two. Yeah, I mean, they come in. You get the Oakland fan base. They're here. They come, and they were supporting the Raiders in the last few years. They were in Oakland. They were still, and they all bought up the tickets. That you see them, the Black Hole at Allegiant Stadium. Mm-hmm. Baseball is very, very different, and I think the A's are going to have to build a fan base here in Las Vegas. That's what it's going to take. It's not. Don't rely on the Oakland fan base. They're going to look somewhere else.
You really think that?
Some will come. Like there'll be some diehards. They've been A's fans forever. Might come to a few games. Look, you're going to get a good crowd here in Vegas when the Yankees come or the Dodgers come, or Ohtani comes with whatever team he's with at that time. That's where you'll get a good crowds for there. But think about a 100-degree weekend in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in August, and the A's are playing the Detroit Tigers. I wonder if the Tiger fans are going to make the trek. I don't know.
Howard Stutz, gaming and sports business reporter for the Nevada Independent. Howard, thanks so much.
Anytime, Joe. Thanks for having me on.